The stock market is getting beat up this week. But does that mean the sports card market is getting beat up too? I've got all of the latest statistics for you in this market report for Thursday, March 19.
My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies. And at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love.
Sports card investors, and welcome to another episode. What wild times we are living in today. The stock market this week has been scary. I know businesses are going through a lot right now. I know you personally may be going through a lot right now. I know a lot of people are. And first of all, I just wanted to say that my wishes and thoughts are for everybody affected by this thing. First of all, the health of everybody. Hopefully your family is safe and sound. Hopefully you've been able to self-isolate and keep your family members safe. That's first and foremost. So I hope for good health for you. But I also hope that for your job or your business interests or whatever those might look like, that you're going to fare okay through this time. I know it's a difficult time for many. Hopefully it's something that, we as a nation, as a people, are going to overcome and come roaring back from in the not too distant future. That's the optimism that I am still bringing every day. Optimistic that this will be more of an interruption than a long-term slowdown, and that our life will get back to normal in the months ahead. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping for the same for the sports card market, because the sports card market has most definitely seen a slowdown as a result of all of this going on in the world around us. And I've got the latest statistics for you. So if I go back a week ago to Wednesday, March the 11th, so that was really the day that all of this started to occur, right? That was the day that I think March Madness first announced they were going to play games in front of no fans. And then I think it was that night that the NBA suspended its season and announced that Rudy Gobert had the positive test. So really, this was the day that stuff started to happen. If I go back to that day 1 week ago, there were 1,323 sales on eBay of the cards that I'm tracking in my Market Movers data tool. So these are the key rookie cards of the key players. 1,323 sales on eBay. Yesterday, exactly 1 week later, there were 706. That is a 47% decline in transaction volume over the course of a week. That is what I expected to see. When I saw all of this starting to happen, I said the first thing you're going to see is a drop in transaction volume. Then you may start to see a drop in prices, but transaction volume will fall more sharply, more quickly than prices. Because what's happening is a lot of people who have collections and who have investments have decided just to hold. Now is not particularly a good time to sell, to try to maximize the value of your investment. So I think a lot of people are holding. So we're seeing transaction volume just generally decline. In fact, decline 47% in a week. I mean, that's a pretty significant transaction volume decline. Now prices. The average price of a card that I am tracking in my Market Movers data tool. So this is the average price of the rookie cards of a lot of different key players. $299.81 1 week ago. So again, going back to that Wednesday, March the 11th, $299.81. Yesterday, $240.79. That is a decline of 20%. So we have seen a 47% drop in transaction volume. We have seen a 20% drop in prices. And that 20% drop in prices is pretty consistent with what I'm seeing across a lot of big name players. We're seeing a lot of players that are kind of on the decline right now. Now, that doesn't mean that every single card is going down. It's not. In fact, I'm going to show you some data that there are still some guys who remain hot. There are still some opportunities to invest and to make profit even in this climate. But the average card is starting to see a decrease. So let's jump into my Market Movers data tool and let's look at some of the specific data. So what you're seeing here, this is my price movements by player screen. This is showing price movements over the last 7 days. So you can see there are, and this is sorted by the guys who have gone up the most. So you can see there are some guys like a Jarrett Stidham and a Teddy Bridgewater and a Kyler Murray. No surprise those would be the top three because they've all had huge weeks this week, right? You've got Jarrett Stidham, who now may be assuming the starting job in New England. We're not sure, but obviously Tom Brady is out of his way. You've got Teddy Bridgewater, who is going to be your starter in Carolina, and he's finally getting a starting opportunity after looking so good for the Saints last year. And you've got Kyler Murray, who just added a great weapon in Arizona with the receiver trade of Hopkins going out to Arizona from the Texans. What a crazy trade that was, by the way. And so those three guys, without a doubt, it makes sense that their prices are going up. So there are still some opportunities if you can anticipate certain things happening, like in this case, free agency and free agency moves. There are still some opportunities to profit despite all of the conditions around us. So just taking a little bit of a further look, we'll just pick Jarrett Stidham. This shows the breakdown of all of his different cards. Let's look at his 2019 Prism Football Base Raw, because that had a lot of sales. It's not a very expensive card, but you can see the graph here and the progression over the last 90 days. So you can see where this card for much of the last 90 days was hovering right around $4. This is the $4 line right here. And then you can see what it's done in the last few days, where now it's gone all the way up to yesterday. The average sale of this card was $15. So that card has gone up 361% over the course of this graph. And so, quite an increase there for Jarrett Stidham. So there are still those guys, but as we scroll down through, let me collapse Jarrett Stidham again. As we scroll down through this list, you see the green here. These are all guys that have gone positive in the last 7 days, okay? So there's a decent number of guys who have been positive in the last 7 days, but then you get into the red. And these are all guys who have been negative in the past 7 days. And unfortunately, there's a lot more red than green. As you can see, this entire screen here is red. And the last little screen here is red as well. So there's more red than green in terms of the players that I am tracking. And that, of course, goes with the concept that the market overall is down about 20% based upon what I'm seeing over the last 7 days. So naturally, there's going to be more red than green on this. So let's look at the cards of a few key players who have been really hot recently. So first of all, let's look at Zion. So here's Zion's cards over the course of the last 7 days. Some have gone up, but the ones that have gone up are generally the ones that have very little transaction volume. So those are ones, you can see this is the number of transactions here. So these are all cards that have only had 2 sales, 3 sales, 3 sales, 1 sale. So you might have just kind of had a freak sale. It's not necessarily a good indicator of the market. What is a good indicator of the market is when you get down to cards with big transaction volumes. And his card with the biggest transaction volume is this one, which is his 2019 Prism Basketball Base Raw. It is down 16% over the last 7 days. And if we want to look at the graph of that, here it loads. And you can see that fall off that has occurred over the course of the last week. These cards were averaging as high as $199 a couple of weeks ago. They got up to kind of their peak of $199, and they are now, as of yesterday, at $134. So you can see that drop is definitely affected Zion and his prices considerably. Let's collapse Zion and let's look at some other guys. Let's actually go back up here to Giannis, because Giannis is a guy who has just been red hot all season. And again, these cards here, fairly low transaction volume overall. Now, what's interesting is Giannis's cards, the 2 cards with the most transaction volume, are his Hoops Base Raw, which has actually seen some increase because I think more people are hopping on the Hoop set. But then his Prism cards have all seen a decrease. His Prism Base PSA 10, his Prism Base BGS 9.5, and his Prism Base Raw have all come down considerably over the course of the last week. Down 15%, down 19%, down 20%. And in fact, let's just look at his PSA 10 because we know those are going to be all consistent quality. And you can see that drop that's occurred over the course of the last week. And in fact, going back even a little bit longer, than a week. You can see how his prices, after what was an amazing run over the course of the whole season, Giannis's cards went up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and now they're starting to come back down again. And we're seeing that trend across a lot of guys. Let's look at another sport. Let's take a look at, let's say, how about Acuna? Ronald Acuna Jr., obviously his baseball cards have been super hot all year. These cards up here that you're seeing go up in value, super low transaction volume. So again, those numbers, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in them. But then you see things like his Topps Update, which is a high transaction volume card. This is a PSA 10 2018 Topps Update. It's only down 4.9% over the last week, but it had dropped some the week prior. And you can see the trajectory here of what his card has done. So it's still well up compared to where it was 90 days ago. It's still up 177% compared to where it was 90 days ago. But over the course of the last 10 days, it's had a reasonably significant decline. It's gone here from a high of $265. That was the high point of this card, and that was on March the 8th. So 10 days ago was the high point at $265, and it is now down to $182 as of yesterday. So that's a pretty significant decline in a 10-day time for Ronald Acuna. Let's look at one more. Let me collapse this. Let's look at, let's see if we have any football players kind of down in this area. No, football, we don't have a lot of football players that are dropping right now. Football, because of the free agency stuff, football is the one part of the card market where you're not seeing drops in prices. In fact, you're seeing some gains in prices. Football, because of free agency, it's fueling it right now. Football is actually fairly hot. Basketball and baseball are where you're seeing the big drops. And, if we even look at somebody like here, Anthony Davis, who, his cards are down 15%, 40% for his BGS 9.5. Now, there weren't nearly as many sales of that. So that could have just been one or two particular low sales that caused that to bottom out. But looking at his PSA 10, which there were more sales of, this is Anthony Davis's 2012 base PSA 10. I mean, it had a surge right before the NBA season stopped. It got all the way up to $865. So if you go back 90 days ago, this card was around $300. It went all the way up to $865, and he really rose the last week before the NBA season stopped, because if you remember, the Lakers beat the Clippers, and they beat the Bucks. And so they really kind of established themselves as, the premier team in the league. And so he saw his cards really, really go up as a result. And then, of course, the NBA season pauses, and those cards that were $865 on March the 10th, now 8 days later, are $538. So this drop, this trend continues, and we're seeing it across a lot of basketball players and a lot of baseball players. So the question is, if you're a savvy sports card investor, is now the time to buy? Is this the opportunity to scoop up some pretty good deals? I can't predict the timing, perfectly. Obviously, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with how long this virus is going to persist and when sports are going to resume and all that kind of stuff. My gut feeling is I would wait a little bit longer, because we're seeing a downward trend, kind of a day over day downward trend right now. And I think that could potentially continue. Now, I sincerely hope that we do not get to the point where there are a lot of desperate people out there who are having to just throw their collections online just to get some emergency cash. I hope we do not get to that point. I hope that we never get to that point. What I would like to see, though, as an investor, is I would like to see prices begin to stabilize a bit before I get in and start buying cards. So I don't want to see that dramatic crash occur. I really, really don't want to get to the point where this thing is just, going down and down because people are getting, really antsy. But there is the possibility that could occur. So I would probably not jump in quite right now, because prices are still on the decline. I would probably wait to see if we see a bit of a plateau. and maybe at a plateau point where the data prices of cards starts going fairly flat. Maybe we've bottomed out the market at that point in time. And assuming we don't reach the point where people just start liquidating collections, if there's positive news regarding the virus and when sports may resume and all that type of thing, I would probably start buying around the plateau point and thinking that we're going to then have a steady upwards trend as soon as it's announced that the leagues are resuming, that the virus is contained in America, and that our way of life is going to get back to normal. I really still, overall, am very, very optimistic about the sports card market. I still think long-term, sports cards are going to be big in our country. I think all of the reasons why before this sports stoppage, they were so hot, I think many of those reasons are still going to exist when sports resumes and our lives get back to normal. I just think that they are certainly at this moment lesser important to a lot of people than what they were a couple of weeks ago, because people have bigger things to contend with in their lives today. And the drop in transaction volume and the drop in prices is reflecting that. If you are sitting on a big collection, my best recommendation to you is to hold that collection, and let's hope that we get to the other side of this pretty soon. Of course, that assumes you can weather the storm financially. And, I hope that all of us can. I hope that this doesn't last too long. We can get to the other side of this. And then sports cards will be back to normal. And all of the great upwards trend that we saw in the last few months will come roaring back. And as an investor, if you can anticipate that and time that well, there could be some real money-making opportunity for you in the weeks ahead. As you see, some of these cards that used to be up here are now down here. So if you can buy them when they plateau, assuming they go back up again, this could be a good opportunity for you. So just something to keep in mind. And of course, my recommendation to you, if you're serious about doing that, and I only ask you to consider this if you're in the financial position where you have, certainly enough income saved to be able to take a risk, because sports cards are absolutely 100% a risk. But if you are willing to take the risk and you're thinking about doing that, then definitely consider subscribing to my Market Movers data tool, because this is the data you need to see what card prices are doing every day and when things begin to plateau and when things begin to potentially tick back up, because that might be the moment when you need to start hopping on things. You can join my Market Movers data tool by going to my website, sportscardinvestor.com, and clicking on the membership link. Again, sportscardinvestor.com, and click on the membership link for more information. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. Enjoy this time with your family and your loved ones. I'm going to continue to bring you content like this, and I will be back in a few days with my next episode. Take care.